George Washington, Man of America. So basically, George Washington was the man of America. He defeated the British in the war in the blow of his fist. He had saved the Americans forever, and has forever impacted the United States of America. It is important that he defeated the British because they were the bad guys and did not pay their taxes, forcing George Washington and the Americans to pay their taxes. George Washington is the first place and best American of all time. In the war, the British were ruining the lives of Americans. George Washington had a plan. Born in America, he had become the general to defeat the British once and for all. He made an army of American men and women. George Washington was a firm believer in equal rights for Americans. The British had forced the British to pay the taxes, but it was not fair for Americans to pay the taxes because they were not a united kingdom. Instead of, America was a united nation under God. The British had to pay the taxes instead, and they had to pay more taxes after the independence of America. The Americans did not care about the British because they were not good Americans, but instead they were old and not independent. British people have bad teeth, stupid accent, smelly breath and ugly clothes and stupid culture and stupid fiends, food and beans, and in the war, America won. George Washington led the Americans to victory. George Washington was an American soldier, statesman, and founding father who served as the first president of the United States from 1789 to 1797. He was born on February 22nd, 1739, and died of George Washington suffered from pleurisy, a viral infection that causes an inflammation in the lining of the lungs as a child, and because of this, he spoke in a high, weak, and breathy voice. George Washington often described himself as soft-spoken, and died in his house in Mount Vernon. He has a wife. Apparently, he had no children whatsoever, but he had many children in his house who were not his children. America was the children of George Washington, and to George Washington, his children were America. He defeated the British. The Americans killed them and threw their tea into the Boston Harbor. Without the tea, there was none more. So the Americans said goodbye to the British forever, and they never spoke again. Good riddance. After the war, George Washington created the government. He was a ruler of America, because he is the man of America always. He was the first president of the United States of America. He lived in the White House. All the Americans loved him because he had saved their lives. In the government, there are leaders, and George Washington was no doubt the leader of America. They voted for George Washington. So basically, George Washington is the man of America. Not only did he defeat the British, but he had saved America. George Washington founded America as an independent nation under the leadership of George Washington. The massive impact and influence he left under the American government is outstanding, and there is even a government today. Every American has a job and love and family, thanks to George Washington. No other man or country could do his work, not even the British, because they were defeated. Thanks to George Washington, he has made history that will never be forgotten. Thousands of people celebrate George Washington on President's Day. He is important because he is the first president of the United States of America, a title that is a result of the British's humiliating defeat. America, a country of humble beginnings, shines brighter than the crown on the British. It is amazing to understand that America is here far away from Europe. How did they get here? In the 1500s, the people of Europe from all over the world came to America. There were even Native Americans, and they became friends and made a Thanksgiving. George Washington believed that Indians were vital to the national security, and on occasion the very survival of the fragile American Republic. The British were also in America, and they had so many babies that they lived there. So the British had claimed America as their own, which was not true. said George Washington, and defeated them in the Revolutionary War for independence and obtained independence for America once and for all. Today is a result of George Washington's doings. There are people in America from all backgrounds, just how George Washington approved of. There are 331,002,651 Americans in today. That is a lot of Americans. Though let's not forget that we would not be here without the efforts of George Washington, the first man of America. God bless America.